there's a lot of houses and a lot of blocks and a lot of people that want service, and it just takes time, and it also takes a lot of money. It's the balance.
Welcome to episode 359 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. This week we have a return guest on the show, Travis Carter, CEO of U.S. Internet. The company, a local internet service provider, has been deploying their fiber network in Minneapolis for several years now, and Travis is here to talk about the process. He explains what it's like to coordinate with city officials and talks in depth about the actual process involved in obtaining the necessary permits and permissions to build a fiber optic network in a metropolitan area. He talks about the learning curve for both the company and city officials and explains the business decisions U.S. Internet has made in order to continue their expansion. Travis also addresses some of the practical matters related to customer service and hiring and shares some personal experiences. Before we get to the interview with Travis, however, we want to bring a special message from a former guest about an upcoming event.
Hey everybody, Ron Placone here. Myself, along with Fight for the Future, are holding an epic live stream for net neutrality on June 11th. June 11th marks 1 year since the FCC repealed net neutrality. Without net neutrality protections, the internet as we know it and all the shows and podcasts that everybody loves could cease to exist. Well, we're here to tell the FCC and Congress that we demand net neutrality. Join us at epiclivestream.com on June 11th to take our internet back. That's epiclivestream.com.
Thanks, Ron. And now on to the interview with Travis Carter from U.S. Internet.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast.
There you go.
I'm Chris Mitchell with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, and I'm sitting next to Travis Carter, the man who gets me to do those introductions in such a lively manner.
I love them. Well done, sir. Well done.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Hey, this is the third time.
Yes, and I think we're gonna have at least one more as I try to tackle you in the field.
Wonderful. Let's do it.
Some of these processes. You know, the introduction actually follows the exact same intonation as I think it's the Leroy Jenkins.
Oh, World of Warcraft. There you go.
That famous video.
The classic. Wow.
If you listen to how I do the intro, it's actually pretty similar to.
Which, if you're a real
Leroy
nerd,
Jenkins.
they're re-releasing this fall, by the way. So
oh, really?
If you'd like to rerun that instance, you're welcome to.
I remember the first time I saw that clip and I fell in love.
Oh, yes, my youth, World of Warcraft. It was such a great game.
So for people who didn't hear your other two appearances, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Travis Carter. I'm the recently nominated CEO of U.S. Internet, and we are a Minneapolis-based internet service provider, the last of the 175 of us that started in 1995. And over the years, as a lot of people have, that understand the industry, the technologies have shifted. We've been through a wireless iteration. We've been through various telecommunications type technologies, DSL and frame relay, et cetera, et cetera. And for the last 9 years, we've been rolling out fiber in the south side of Minneapolis to the residents and businesses and multi-dwelling units. And this is actually, yes, our 9th season of actually deploying fiber in the city of Minneapolis, and we're starting to get a pretty good sized footprint out there.
I'd say, yeah. You're, I think you told me before, is it 65, 75,000
Yeah,
houses?
I think we're just past our 75,000th home we've passed. And again, I don't like to emphasize that it's just homes, it's whatever we pass. Mm-hmm. Businesses, schools, apartments, etc.
Right. You recently had a pretty sizable and recurring attack, a denial of service attack on your network.
Which is what I thought it was on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock Central Time. Because I'm not a big TV watcher, I was assuming there was something malicious happening on the internet. But after some analysis, we determined there was a show called Game of Thrones, and it was the final season. Now, to put it in perspective, we usually go through the Super Bowl and the Final Four and all these very highly streamed episodes that go on, but they morphed in comparison to Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. That is the single largest streaming consumption that we've seen since the inception of the company. It was unbelievable.
And that was the first day, right? I mean,
It was the season 8, episode 1, and then it continued on for the next up until this last Sunday when the finale happened. So I'm assuming next Sunday will be relatively normal.
Right. Do you know what's the biggest peak, the first episode or the last episode or somewhere?
Almost all the same.
Okay.
You know, they were, I think we were pushing somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, 35 gigabit of just Game of Thrones. It boggles my mind if you think about it from a national level or even an international level, how much consumption was happening just to show this one television program.
Yeah, how much electricity did it take to move it out there?
I suppose I should probably watch it now, that it's, if that many people are.
Well, it depends. There's some people who found the ending sufficiently unbelievable or not fun. I myself also haven't seen it. I pick and choose a little bit, and I hadn't gotten into that because, in part, it'd have to be amazing for me to dedicate that amount of time to it.
Yeah, it's well, and then the first thing I didn't know is they're 90 minutes long, so we had effectively this 90-minute denial of service attack happening. Luckily, because it's a fiber-based network, it really had zero impact on it. It was just the new high,
right? And
we hadn't seen anything like that in the past. So at least we now know we can handle Game of Thrones.
And even like 5-7 years ago, people would be talking about how that could bankrupt you because of the transit costs of your costs of getting that content. How much did it cost you to for those 30 to 35 gigabits?
The little secret in our industry, almost nothing.
Right.
Yeah, the fiber's there. It's hooked up to people's homes. It's hooked up to the content delivery networks, in this case, Akamai. So we effectively went from a computer in our data center to all of these homes. There wasn't internet per se. It was delivering locally. So a little bit of electricity, and that was about it.
Right. Now, tell me about your goal for Minneapolis.
So the ultimate goal, which I hope to realize here in the next 5 years, is to have Minneapolis be the first NFL-sized city that'll be fully 100% covered with fiber optic connectivity in every square inch of the city. Now, if you look at a map of Minneapolis, the vast majority of Minneapolis is actually what we call the south side of Minneapolis, and we're about 3/4 done at the end of this season. And so we'll continue through finishing South Minneapolis, then we'll make our way up to North and Northeast, which geographically are smaller, so it won't take us as long to cover, and then we will have the entire city complete. Now, there will always be little pockets and roads and things that may be stragglers, predominantly the downtown corridor. They don't really like you digging up, they being the city, digging up streets that they just remodeled a year ago. So we might have to wait 5-6 years to be able to get in there. But in the interim, we're going to get all the neighborhoods and all the vast majority done, and then continue to expand out from there.
I told you I was just on Hennepin for a comedian, and I saw Orange Conduit on Hennepin. Was that for you?
Yep, that's us. Yep, as the city is resurfacing and redoing the main corridors, we're getting our conduit in at that time. So down Hennepin Avenue in Minneapolis, we're about halfway down this year. We'll finish it up next year, and then we'll have a complete fiber conduit through the downtown corridor on that street, coinciding with the street being remodeled.
And then also right around there, I think it might be 9th. I'm not sure, maybe 8th. One of them is just totally gone.
Yep.
And so you're getting in there as well.
You got it. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really key, and it's something we learned along the way, is if you get plugged into the streets department, you can, especially in these downtown hard surface areas, you can get in alongside them. It's a couple of years in the making, but you can definitely get in there and make it happen.
And so how does that work? I mean, is it just like they tell you, like, okay, you've got this week in May where you can do it, or how does it coordinate?
Yeah, they give you a time slot to get in, and so you need to be very coordinated. You need to have all your parts and pieces. You get in there, you do the construction, and you get out, and then you let the next subcontractor go in. So think of it like layers of the cake. We'll go in from a network standpoint, then the water sewer guy, until ultimately they overlay the road and the sidewalks.
In talking about Minneapolis, I understand you recently got it's almost like a superpower.
Yeah, I didn't even really honestly appreciate this when I discovered it, and I didn't even understand that apparently cities have this concept that they put out. I don't know if this is a federal or local thing, but at least for Minneapolis, they have this 20-year plan, which Minneapolis, I thought was pretty original, called it Minneapolis 2040, right? So, okay. And I
nice
just
round numbers.
Yeah, I just happened to be perusing through there, and I happened to look in the technology section, and deep buried in the technology section was a line in there that said that one of the charters of this 2040 plan was to enable fiber optic connectivity for every citizen in Minneapolis. I thought, oh, that's cool. That's us, right? That
Right.
must be us, because as far as I know, the incumbents aren't doing it anymore. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. We're in there. And I just kind of forgot about it. Well, fast forward, I was at a city meeting with I like to go down there every year to give them an idea of where we're going to be working and meet all the people. And I just happened to mention that we were in this 2040 plan, and you could literally see on their face, like, oh, really?
You're a celebrity now.
I didn't even, they're like, oh, well, that kind of sort of changes everything. And it's really, I don't want to say it's like this ultimate power, but we're now part of the plan. And when you're part of the plan for a city, that's kind of the recipe for what's going to happen over the next. So it's really helped us navigate some of these more challenging projects. I always just say, hey, we're in the plan. And things seem to happen.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if you knew, but we're in the plan.
We're in the plan. Yeah.
You got that going for you.
What do you want me to tell them? We're in the plan. I mean, so, and I didn't even ask to be in the plan. I don't even know how we got in there, but we're in the plan.
I think there's some sense, a lot of people, and I would even say myself, don't really know how you have to interface with the city. But one of the things that you and I have talked about, if I remember correctly, is that, you have this active Ethernet network approach, or an Ethernet network, and so you need to have these different buildings. Not a lot of them, but a few of them in the city of Minneapolis. At some point, the city of St. Paul, perhaps.
We'll see. Yeah.
My city. But where you're doing that, then you need in a central location for several neighborhoods, and you have all of your fiber coming in there, and you deal with that. It's your local office, central office, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and so to get that permitted, you have to build a building or something like that, and you have to tell the city what you're going to do, and you tell the city, I need this building to do X, Y, and Z, and they look at you like you're talking in a different language, I'm guessing, because the zoning hasn't anticipated this kind of a building.
Yeah, so the city has kind of these standard templates for types of buildings. If you wanted to build a gas station or a restaurant, or the normal things that we see every day, there is a process for that. Then they have what they call the exceptional use case, and our model is very similar. It's actually identical to the way that the original phone companies put their networks in. They would build a building in the neighborhood, and they would run their copper cables out to everyone's home. Well, we're doing effectively the same thing. We're putting a building somewhere in the neighborhood, and then we're running our fiber cables out to everyone's home and business. So what happens is, when you need to build this building, you need to apply for a conditional use permit to go into the neighborhood. So now you fall into a whole separate process, okay? And the process is fairly well defined, but if you'd never been through the process before, it could seem very cumbersome. And I understand the city's point. They don't want people building random this or that. So you go down and you have your architect draw up your plans, and you have all of your studies and your surveys done, and you take it down to the city. You have a neighborhood meeting, and you just go through what it's going to be. And 6 months later, you will get a stamp that says approved. And then from there, you build your central office, and then you operate it. First time we went through it, I was pulling my hair out because I didn't understand the process.
You did a pretty good job.
Well, yeah, not much left. This last time, well, luckily there's a guy that works for me that did most of it. But anyways, it was a more, we kind of knew what to expect. And I think when you're building these kind of networks, it's fear of the unknown. You don't know how to navigate the city. You don't know how to navigate the permitting department, et cetera, et cetera. But once you figure that out, it's a fairly regimented and standardized process. For everything you do in the city, you got a permit. You just got to get used to that. And there's a permit, and there's a timeline, and there's a cost associated with that.
There was someone at a conference I was at this year who actually, in regard to right-of-way processes, more for wireless for 5G, but would be useful for this as well, who suggested that cities should have a 1 or 2 page document that just says, if you want to do this, here's how you go about it. Here are the steps that you have to go through. Because I think a lot of this stuff you had to just sort of figure out, right? I mean, there was no place where you could sort of prepare yourself. Okay, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think you probably had a sense, I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 and see what happens next.
The other thing you have to realize from the city's standpoint is in some of these neighborhoods we've been in, this public right-of-way hasn't been disturbed since the sewer and water lines were put in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's not, going back to the building, there's not this reoccurring process. So what I think the city does really well is if you want to apply for this license or that license that they do every day, there's a process. But when you go down to like the city and say, hey, I would like to install fiber optic cables in the public right-of-way deep in the neighborhoods, you got to kind of work with them to determine, the process and how to do the permits and the costs and, all this stuff. But once you get that momentum going, it's pretty straightforward, actually.
Or once you get in the plan, right? I mean, coming back to the beginning of this point, is that if you can go in there and say, hey, I want to do this thing, and it's a part of the comprehensive plan,
yes,
you get a different reaction from
those people. I think it certainly does help. But if you're starting out kind of greenfield, right, we're going to go into St. Paul. We're not in the plan. We've never worked with the city before.
You've heard rumors that they're difficult to work with because
I
keep telling you that.
No one's ever mentioned that they wanted us to even be there. You just have to kind of start working through the process. How do we permit? Here's the permit process that works in Minneapolis. Here's what we've had experience before. Find a champion at the city to help work this through. And it can be very frustrating and take a lot of time, but I think ultimately you get there.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about one of the more fun things you get to do. In fact, you probably didn't have a chance to do this before. You raised your prices.
We have this balance between the debt load we're taking, our costs to hiring people and, insurance and et cetera, and then being able to fully cover a city. We've learned over the years there's certain areas of the city that our uptake is going to be higher than others.
Right. So let's just fill in a little bit of background for people, again, who aren't familiar. You already have services available across the entire city.
Yes.
And so you built this wireless network, and you have a sense of where more people wanted it than other people in other parts of the city. So you have a sense of, absent even looking at any other data, you simply know how many people have come to you from how many city blocks and where to sign up for broadband.
Correct. There's a desire for broadband. So we know where those pockets were, and so we were able to put our fiber facility down there first, because it resolved the contention of our wireless network. If you take a wireless node and you hook it up to fiber, you've got capacity. And then we also knew where the people that wanted the consumption or wanted the internet were at. So we've been continuing to move out. Now, when we get into some of these areas that the uptake isn't quite as good as it is in other areas, it puts a strain on the financials. So what we had to look at is say, where is that sweet spot between being the cheapest player in town to being the best value in town, which then gave us enough ammunition or enough financial capacity to facilitate our banking requirements so that we could go everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spreadsheet exercise, honestly. And so by doing a what I would consider a relatively minor increase, it now gives us enough financial capacity that we can just literally go from east to west or north to south without trying to cherry pick areas that we know we can get the return on. And
so another bit of context, I think, is that you have long offered the greatest value in terms of, your price of, your entry price like $35 a month, right?
Yeah. We started out at like $30, then we went to $35, and now we're at $50.
Right.
That's where we'll stay.
Mm-hmm. And it's worth noting, you like to talk about this a little bit. People seem to like you on Yelp.
Yeah, well, they either like me or they hate me.
There's not very many who hate you, from what I can tell.
No, it's usually the people that have us or the services available, 5-star all day long.
Mm-hmm. You were like a 4.76,
yeah,
right?
4.7. We dropped to a 4.6.
Oh.
Well, I learned that if you don't give a guy $1.16 credit for his unused days when he canceled, he got mad, so we're fixing that. Anyways, but so he gave me a 1-star review after being with us for 4 years of perfect service. Mm-hmm. There's just people that are like that.
Right.
And then you have the people that we're not there yet, and they're usually the crabby one.
Okay, so actually among your active customers, you're doing better than your rating might suggest, because some people are ranking you down because they can't take your service.
You got it. Or we have this little thing here in Minnesota, as you're well aware of, called the weather. Mm-hmm. The fundamental problem we have is weather. We had a really brutal winter this year. Mm-hmm. It's been a little slow going here in getting ready for spring and summer. And because our fiber facility is all underground, and we freeze like an ice cube here, we can really only build 6, 7, 8 months out of the year. And so we have a lot of variables we're dealing with. And the thing that other people always forget, and I challenge people to, is Minneapolis is not a huge city by the mega city standpoints, but go buy a new pair of shoes and try to walk up and down every block. There's a lot of houses and a lot of blocks and a lot of people that want service, and it just takes time, and it also takes a lot of money. It's the balance.
And so in this case, you decided to raise your rates from 35 at the base to go. You increased the speeds that were available. You went to $50.
Yep.
Now, if I sign up at $50, what check am I actually going to write you at the end of the month?
$50.
That's so weird.
Yeah, no, there's no, and it's month to month. So there's none of these games where, well, here, sign up for 12 months and then maybe, we'll play the cable company lottery. I have cable at home. I don't know what my bill is every month. I'm always curious to see what it is. Mm-hmm. It's $50 a month. You get 300 megabit up and down, which is more than enough for most people. And that's it. And if cancel at any time, sign up at any time. I try to have this mantra inside the business, which be the customer. Mm-hmm. So how would you want to be treated? And that's what we try to do.
Right. And then you also have a gigabit for how much?
Gigabit 70, and then we have a 500 megabit in the middle, which is 60. Just because some marketing person told me you had to have 3 choices. I would literally, at some point in the future, I would love to just be gigabit only. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit...
we talked about that a little bit.
It's a little bit of an old school kind of marketing thing, to be honest with you. But 300, 500, and a gig, they seem to be the right speeds for the right value, and our adoption rate has never been higher.
Right. One of the things that you mentioned was that you saw very little drop-off from when you raised the rates.
Yeah, I think we had 14 people cancel directly due to rates, and I think last count 9 of them signed back up.
Mm-hmm. It's still the best deal in town.
Well, there was that emotional arc. I'm mad at Travis, so therefore I'm going to cancel and show him, and then they look at the other 2 options and go, darn, I better turn it back on because...
Right. But let's be clear about this. You didn't do it because you're trying to buy your 3rd house in the Caymans or something like that. This is what the spreadsheet tells you had to be done to be able to serve every last premise in Minneapolis.
Yep. The banks have a very defined box you need to stay in. You've got 3 metrics that the bank uses to determine your ability to borrow money. And so those 3 numbers have to be green every quarter. And in order to maintain that status and to continue growing, the thing in our network is if we actually stopped, we would be far more profitable.
Sure, I can imagine that.
Than if we continued to expand.
Right, because, if you stop building, you would have almost no expenses.
Yeah.
If you can off the top of your head, I'm curious if if you look at the cost you have for keeping everyone employed, your customer service people, how does that compare to just the cost you shell out to expand your network every year?
Oh, I'm just going to, a little bit of wing it here, but 3/4 of it goes to expanding than it does to actually maintaining and running what we have today. Yes. It's the beauty of fiber. We have a wireless group and a fiber group, and the wireless guys are always the super complicated process of getting people connectivity. The fiber guys just plug people in and you never hear from them again. So there is not a lot of ongoing costs to run the fiber network.
So if you just took a year off, if in 2020 you said we're not going to expand anymore, you could basically Scrooge McDuck it.
Oh, if this was purely Travis needs to buy a bunch of houses and drive a bunch of cool cars, I wouldn't lay another foot of fiber in the ground. There's enough in the ground that honestly I could live for the rest of my life comfortably.
Yeah.
But from a career standpoint, that isn't what we're trying to accomplish. I really want to be the first NFL city. I don't know why. I just think it's a personal goal of mine.
It's because you love the football team so much.
Yeah, we have one, don't we? Yeah. No, so it's just, getting service out there and getting people happy. And it's a little bit intoxicating to have the best product in our town. So when you come into a neighborhood, it's like the circus coming to town. Everyone's excited about you, and there's, a lot of heavy equipment, and we're drilling and we're hooking people up. And, at the end of the day, 99% of the people are happy.
Right. And then there's a few people for whom, one or two flowers on the corner property has been disturbed.
Yes. It's what I tell my crews is make sure you have a stack of $20 Starbucks gift cards, because it's amazing how much that will solve a problem. Somebody's petunia got dug up. I apologize for that. We try not to, but a nice latte usually fixes it.
Sure. I hope they're able to get more than one for $20.
Yeah. I haven't been there forever.
Me as well. So there's actually one thing I just wanted to throw on you, which I know you and I talked about a little bit, and that's that, you put yourself out there when you build the network, and some people have been critical. You got a really positive note from someone, and I think it's worth noting that people should do this. If they feel that they're getting really good service from a small company, they should send a note because it touched you.
Oh, I almost fell out of my chair. I logged into Reddit, where I usually have my fans and my non-fans, and I had a young lady who had emailed me and said, "Hey, I just want to say thank you for your hard work. Because of the facility you brought to me, I was able to graduate college, and I've got my degrees in various IT, and I'm out looking for my first job." And she just said thank you, and I was trying to find out where the slam was
right
in here, and she was just generally thanking us for all of our hard work. And I said, "Hey, can I share it?" And so I sent it to you and a bunch of my other friends. And I said, "Hey, check this out."
Right.
After 25 years in the internet business, we have one person we touched positively. But if they couldn't watch Game of Thrones, oh man,
it's all over.
We'd have a mutiny.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how something like that, or if, for instance, you had an outage when a lot of people were streaming the Super Bowl or something like that. I mean, that's one of those things where you could, you talked about your price increase. You lost only a few people. You would lose a lot of people the next day, I think.
We had an issue in the winter where we had some ice freezing that caused us. Remember, it was really cold here in February.
I was in North Carolina for that week.
Well, you're lucky I was stuck here, but we had some damage that happened on one of the fibers, and it took us like a day to get it fixed. And we had some real unhappy people during that time. I always go back to this water analogy. When it just works, people just expect it to work. When it doesn't work, and you can't take a shower, or you can't watch your stuff, or you can't do your work, that's a real problem. And these people are not afraid to voice that sentiment.
Yeah, as soon as it's back online, they're emailing.
Oh yeah. And then a few days later, they forget all about it, and back off we go. But we really try our best to minimize any sort of service interruptions that we can.
And so the last thing is, and this is something that you had brought up with me when we were hanging out one time, was your hiring practices. And I'm curious about this because I think, this is something that small companies, local governments, lots of different people that are hiring for these kinds of jobs, which don't require a college degree in many cases for outside plant. What are you looking for someone who's going to be putting conduit in the ground and things like that?
I honestly, I went to college 9 days. I don't like to brag, so I'm not a big...
You're like Doogie Howser. You got done in 9 days.
Yeah, I really, honestly, in all the years I've been doing this, I like to sit across from the person and get a feel for who they are. Can they show up to work on time? Can they be reliable to get the task done that we need to get done? More so than what their resume says, I try to hire the person and the personality. And, we give people second chances. I have people that work for me that have a fairly jaded past. It's not my issue. As far as I'm concerned, they have taken care of that responsibility. And heck, I wasn't super crazy when I was 18, but I did some things, and we all did that. We're 18, 19, 20 years old. Some people, and so why should they have to not get a job from me? Because I really need their help, and they need a good paying job. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I don't get too caught up in much of anything other than the fact that I'm just like, hey, I got your back if you got my back. Everyone that works for me is spot on.
You said some of those hires have been some of the people who may have had a background that would have caused other people not even to give them an interview. Some of them have been your best workers.
Oh, I have a guy that went through a state-sponsored program, where he was incarcerated. And I forget the number, but he told me there was like 12,000 people that had gone through this program. And he was the only one who had a job when he got out in the entire history of the program. Mm-hmm. He's the greatest guy in the world. You know what? He made a mistake. Who am I to judge, right? He's a great guy, and he's a hard worker, and he's there for us every day. And, as far as I'm concerned, he paid his ticket. Mm-hmm. And now he's back at work. And I've got many examples like that.
So as far as I know, you're one of a small group of people that's listened to every episode.
Yep.
So when this comes out, are you going to listen to it?
Oh, I always listen to it. And I always go, that's the way my voice sounds? No, I it's my Tuesday morning ritual. And
sometimes Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning, much to my chagrin. But, I will text you and say, is there a problem today?
Right.
But no, I do listen to it. And I try to just get the message out there. I think a lot of people are, they're worried about getting into this type of business. I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of things that happen that are outside of your control. But at the end of the day, it's very, very rewarding.
So actually, that brings up another question for me, which is that you talk about this a lot, the 9 days of college.
Yep.
Where did you learn all the financial stuff you need to know? Because you make the case that this is more about financial than anything else.
Well, I'm really good at pretending, but I've got guys that work for me. My CFO and my financial guy, it's like watching Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen play basketball. These guys are unbelievable.
Well, some of it's rubbed off because, you just back of the envelope stuff.
I just sit and be quiet and listen. When it's technology or digging in the dirt, I'm there. I've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed, but on this financial stuff, we actually have this joke internally. There's two types of money. There's cash that I'm used to. This is the cash that we can use to buy a hamburger for lunch. And then there's spreadsheet money. And spreadsheet money is what we take down to the bank to get more cash that we can spend. So you just got to find good people that know how to do this spreadsheet money. I'm real good at the cash side of it.
Great. Thanks for coming in today.
Hey, thank you so much. It's always fun.
That was Travis Carter, CEO of U.S. Internet, talking about what it's like to build a fiber optic network in Minneapolis. We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle is @muninetworks. Subscribe to this podcast and the other podcasts from ILSR, Building Local Power, and the Local Energy Rules podcast. You can access them wherever you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. And thank you for listening to episode 359 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast.